Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at My Expat Taxes. For my fellow Americans out there, we all know tax season is upon us, and for anyone who's ever had the pleasure of dealing with multiple tax agencies in multiple countries, you know this can be a challenging experience. That's why when it comes to dealing with anything tax-related abroad, I always recommend hiring a pro to help you navigate this unknown space. In my experience, this not only saves you time and spares you from the unnecessary headaches, it also has literally saved me thousands of dollars in taxes over the years. So I am super excited to introduce you to My Expat Taxes, a true pro in this space that focuses 100% on U.S. expat taxes. Whether you're filing for 2023, catching up on back taxes, predicting a future tax obligation for a future move abroad, or just looking for some guidance, My Expat Taxes has your back with speedy and affordable online filing options and real human accountants to assist you as needed. Join the more than 16,000 other Americans living abroad who have used their services by visiting myexpattaxes.com via the link in the show notes. My guest today is my good friend Kristin Wilson, who you may recall is a previous guest here on About Abroad, but if not, you may have heard of her elsewhere because she is very well known for her work as the host of the Travelin' with Kristin YouTube channel, the author behind the Digital Nomads for Dummies book, and the host of the very popular Badass Digital Nomads podcast. She is truly one of the OGs in the travel space and someone that I've been following for a very long time. So it's been a pleasure to call her a friend and to have her back here on the show. This episode is more of a fireside chat than it is an interview. We're just chatting about all things travel and living abroad and sharing with you some of the experiences that we both had over the last year or so since we last caught up. This will be airing on both Badass Digital Nomads and About Abroad. So for the About Abroad community, I hope you'll follow the link in the show notes and hop over to check out Badass Digital Nomads right after you get done listening to this episode. In the meantime, please help me in welcoming Kristin to About Abroad.
Okay, welcome to a discussion.
It's a chat. Who's driving this thing? I don't know what we're doing.
Whose intro is this? Welcome to Badass Digital Nomads meets About Abroad. I'm your semi-host, Kristin from Traveling with Kristin, and I'm here with Chase, the host of About Abroad. We're doing a new podcast style that we've never done.
I'm excited about it, Kristin. I mean, we've been doing the podcast thing for a while. You and I have been friends for a while, and here we are finally trying something new. I don't know. I'm excited. We'll see what the audience thinks. You guys let us know, but I'm absolutely looking forward to catching up with you because it's been a while and you've been the busy traveler that you are. So there's a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, we had the idea to do this because we are friends and we've each had each other on the podcast before. So we've done the traditional interview thing. And we were just talking recently and we wanted to do another interview, but then we thought, why don't we share an episode and kind of just talk and interview each other rather than doing it the traditional way? So here we are. We manifested it.
We're non-traditional folks, aren't we? No, I'm excited about it. Are you? I know you were recently in Mexico. Are you still in Mexico? Or are you back in the U.S. or where are you in the world?
I am in Miami. I know my background changes basically every day, so no one knows where I am. I don't know where I am half the time. I was in Mexico for 2 weeks and in Tulum. Wanted to go down there and investigate because I hadn't been there in 10 years and I've heard so much about it since the pandemic. So many people were moving down there and it just kind of became a thing. It became a place to go. And I love the Mayan Riviera. I love Playa del Carmen. And so I thought I'll go back down and kind of see what's going on. And I actually did a whole podcast about it, so I won't go too much into it. But I titled the podcast Tulum, Mexico, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there are so many good things about it, bad things about it, and also very disturbing things that happened just in the 2 weeks that I was there, including one of my friends who got really sick. One of my friends, we met at the pool at my Airbnb and became friends in those 2 weeks. And he got really sick at the end, had to get an emergency surgery, almost died, and was essentially extorted for money at the hospital before going into surgery.
Oh my God.
$50,000. They basically made him pay before they would treat him. And he was borderline, like, yeah, he had this infection, like internal thing, that he could have died from sepsis.
Oh my God. That is wild. We talk about high medical cost prices in the US. It extends elsewhere, I guess.
Yeah, Tulum it's definitely developed quickly, and you can kind of feel this difference between old Tulum and new Tulum, like just normal Tulum when it was just a Mexican town, and now Tulum as this international destination for musicians and DJs, artists, jet setters. And it seems from reading the reviews of this hospital on Google, it's called Costa Med, that other people have had really bad experiences there as well. So they might just be inflating the prices of care to be able to extract more money from maybe high net worth people, or I don't know, but it's definitely a worrying situation. And I know Mexico is a popular place for people to go for medical care, and you expect it to be cheaper, but I definitely think it is cheaper in other parts of Mexico. But if you happen to have an emergency and you're in Tulum, then you only really have one option that's close by. And I think they know that. So yeah, but there's definitely a pharmacy on every block or every half of a block with signs outside in English saying all of the things that they sell. So, it's the same things they sell in all the pharmacies in Mexico, but you can definitely see that they're marketing to foreigners with, like, I don't know, like Xanax and Retin-A and Adderall and like all this stuff that you need a prescription for in the US. And the prices are also, pretty high.
Wow. I've got to listen to that episode because I think the good, bad, and the ugly is a great way to frame it. I've been to Tulum one time, had a fantastic time, but there were some ugly moments as well. And I was also kind of caught off by the dichotomy between like the different like worlds living in the same, like in this little small kind of relatively small space. Like everything out there along the beach is like so chic and kind of like almost feels like you're in like Miami or Southern California or something like that. But then you have like some like a very different vibe just right there in the main town. I actually like really prefer the like the main street, main town that feels a little bit more like Mexico to me. and but then like we had situations where like actually we stayed at a hotel that was owned by this family. And it was like, when we arrived there, we were like, this looks nothing like the pictures. Like from the outside, it was horrible. But then you stepped inside the metal gate and it was like this amazing oasis of bungalows and stuff. And they told us, like the family told us that they keep it that way to like prevent the cartel from coming to like extort them. So they like want it to look crappy on the outside. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of mind blowing. Like I'm having this great time here. And then I was like, wow, that's very real. And then we went to get like a like a mud bath massage, which was like this really cool experience. But they told us like while we were getting ready to leave, this guy walked up to us and was like, you guys need to get out of here like right now. Like the cartel's on their way, like a local there. He's like, they're on their way and I'm not kidding, like get out. So like, I don't know, maybe he was messing with us, but we had these like two kind of sketchy incidents inside this otherwise like epic experience that made me love everything about Tulum. And so anyway, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like those little experiences kind of like taint an overall experience in an unfortunate way.
Yeah, like I definitely didn't have any bad experiences, but I met multiple people that did while I was there in a short period of time, and that seemed concerning. And then I looked on Reddit and saw a lot of a lot of other stuff. It's tough being an outsider to criticize a place, but also it's like when you own a business or anything, if you're an athlete, like you want to have an objective opinion of how's your training going, how's your performance. Businesses bring in consultants to, analyze what they're doing and try to find ways to improve. And I kind of think that happens when foreigners come to other countries. I think, like, look at the US, for example, it's just like a mix of people from all over the world. I think having all of those different perspectives really helps a country evolve in a different way than if the borders were just closed like North Korea and no one could come in. So I want to give them constructive criticism, but then at the same time, I'm sure if Mexico could fix their problems with the cartel and crime, they would have done so already, and they don't need us, telling them that. But it could just be a part of, of life there, and I don't know what can be done.
Well, I know that you and I both have had people on our shows that love living in Mexico and have developed like a really awesome long-term lifestyle for themselves there. So there's obviously a lot to love and a lot that goes right. And I think sometimes it can be like, I don't know if you find this on your podcast, but like definitely on mine. It's so easy when you're having these conversations with these amazing people that you have so much in common with that are living the types of lifestyles that interest us. It can be so easy just to like lean into all the positive and all the fun and excitement and adventure. But it's fair to like assess the downsides. And I think it's like we'd be doing a disservice to the people that listen to not share those things sometimes. So even though it's not like the first inclination, it's like, I think it's worthwhile to share that perspective.
Right. And even with the risks and everything, um, I think it was easier for me being a female. I don't think I look as maybe intimidating as men or something. So I didn't get pulled over by the cops, although I used to get pulled over all the time in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, and they would ask me for money. So it didn't happen in Mexico, which was nice, but it's not going to be everybody's experience. But despite some of the bad reports and things, I still enjoyed my time there. I definitely spent more money than in other places I went in Mexico. But by the end of the 2 weeks, I was going around on my scooter. I knew the roads really well. I knew which parts of the beach I liked the most. I knew which restaurants to avoid, which ones are good. I had co-working opportunities. I had developed this group of maybe like 10 to 15 friends that I could hang out with or text them or see what they were doing. And yeah, I could have stayed longer. So despite the downsides, and I enjoyed it.
Sounds like a good time nonetheless. It's funny you mentioned the thing about getting pulled over a lot because I live in like I've gotten one ticket in my life in the US and I think I've been pulled over twice, once where I got a ticket, once where I didn't. And I'm approaching 40 years old now, so like, that's a pretty good track record in the US. I moved to Spain. I've been pulled over like 15 times. I've gotten like 5 tickets. I get pulled over for the stupidest stuff and like actually get fined for it. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, do I have this look about me or something? But I have not had good luck in Spain. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that, if it's just bad luck or if I'm doing something wrong. But
Because you could be Spanish. Like if I saw you driving, I wouldn't think, oh, there's an American,
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't get it. But I got like one of the tickets that they always like all the expats there tell you like, oh, you never need to worry about this, which is like essentially after living there for, I can't remember if it's 3 or 6 months, you have to convert your driver's license to a local license, which is a huge pain in Spain. And if I've learned in a lot of countries. So nobody does it. Like literally every expat you talk to, they're like, no, I'm not going through that process. Like the cops aren't going to know. You just play like a tourist. And, worst case scenario, you get a little €100 fine, you just pay it and move on. Well, like I've got that ticket. I got a massive fine and I got like a threat to, I don't remember, something kind of bad. So it's like, okay, I actually have to go through this process and actually convert to getting a Spanish license, which took like 6 months and a ton of money and a ton of work. But, part of the experience, but like super annoying.
Yeah, I've heard that about Spain as one of the downsides. And last time we talked, you were in Spain. I think you were in Malaga, maybe. I can't remember now.
It was probably Valencia at the time.
Oh, yeah, Valencia. Yep. So you and your wife have been traveling since then. And where are some of the places you've gone? And are you full-time nomads now, or what's kind of your plan moving forward?
Oh, it's so many things wrapped up into this. I'm trying to figure it out here on the fly, so I'll share with you like what I think, but we'll see what the future holds. So, like a little bit of context, I have been living in Spain for the last 6 years, or since 6 years ago, I should say. But almost 2 years ago, we decided to like leave our apartment. We'd been living in Valencia. Love Valencia. It's an amazing city to live in and great jumping off point to like explore a lot of the Iberian Peninsula and other parts of Europe. But we wanted to like we have a camper van and we have location independence with work, and we were like, let's take a year or something and just kind of travel around and experience more of Europe. And that's turned into almost 2 years. And the plan has sort of been like travel for a couple weeks or maybe up to a month in the van, and then rent an Airbnb for a few months, and then rinse and repeat. And so we've done that going through, we stayed in places in France, Germany, Austria, explored a lot of Switzerland, currently in Italy, and we did a road trip through Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, and Greece, and then stayed for a few months and took the ferry over to Crete, which was an experience, and stayed in Crete for 3 months before returning back over to the mainland in Italy. So we've been able to do a lot. I mean, it's been super, super fun. Also kind of exhausting and sort of like over the nomad life, like ready to like really settle down again somewhere. And we're just trying to figure out where that will be, because I think, as you know, it's like sort of an addicting lifestyle. It's like you want to give it up, you might need to, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but there's that place we want to go still and we haven't been. So I don't know how to balance that sometimes.
I know every year I say, I'm going to travel less this year, but then I end up saying yes to a lot of opportunities and things come up and events and yeah. But you went to Slovenia and Albania, which are two countries I've been to Albania a little bit, but I haven't really explored there. What was your perception of those countries? I mean, the coastline of Albania looks beautiful, and then Slovenia looks just like a fairy tale landscape.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, like with Slovenia. And I should add, like, so we ended up we kind of rushed through Slovenia thinking we're going to come back through there on the way and spend more time there on the way back up. But like our first impression was just like, this is incredibly green and beautiful, like more so than I thought. I wasn't fully prepared for that, and it was like just an incredible surprise. So that was really nice. And then traveling down through Croatia, we actually broke down. Like we had like a mechanical failure that ended up kind of trapping us unexpectedly for a few weeks outside. Well, we ended up moving to Split while they were fixing the van. And so anyway, that cut our Albania trip short because we had a ferry to catch out of Greece. So we sort of rushed through these two countries, but in both cases, I would say they're like highly underrated in terms of like destinations. I think they're both like on the rise as it is, but even knowing that, I was still really caught off guard by like the natural beauty and the friendliness of the people. And especially compared with Croatia, just because Croatia is like so overrun with tourists now, those two countries were like a nice like respite from that in a way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. I remember being in Split and just feeling agitated, just overwhelmed with the tourism and the people. It was the end of summer, so the locals seemed like they were ready for low season, let's put it that way. And then you get over the border into what is after Croatia. I think we went to,
Montenegro?
yeah, did we go to Montenegro first? I think first we took a bus to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then we went back and rented a car and drove to Montenegro. Yeah, but once you get over the border, it's like so different because there's so many fewer people, and it's just like you just instantly relax.
100% true. Yeah, I was really kind of like taken back by the over tourism in Croatia. As beautiful as it is, there's a lot to love. But like walking around Dubrovnik, like I just felt like I was in Disney World.
We didn't even go there. We just drove by. We're like, there it is.
There it is. I think you made a good move. Like there's so much more to see. I would go back and spend a lot more time in the islands, and then I would really love to go back to Albania and spend more time like along the coast. And one like little, I wouldn't, not obviously it's not a hidden gem, but like Kotor and Montenegro is so worth a stop for anybody that hasn't been. And you don't need like a ton of time necessarily. I mean, I could happily spend a good bit of time there, but I was like that was probably like the highlight of that stretch of the trip for me.
I went there as well. That was actually the place where I saw the most people, probably in Montenegro, but it was beautiful and got some really great pictures there. We stayed in this very rural, remote Airbnb in a vineyard, and it had no internet. It was $500 for, might have been a week or a few weeks, maybe the month. It was very cheap. And we split it. It had like 5 bedrooms. And yeah, we just hung out there in this vineyard. I was trying to work with my SIM card. It wasn't very effective. And it was really close to Podgorica. And that's where we took the bus into Albania from Podgorica. Podgorica at that time, that was 2017, definitely feels like a small capital city. Like it's not so glamorous or anything. It just kind of feels like a big town and a little rundown. But yeah, didn't seem like there was that much to do there. But Montenegro in general was a nice place to relax on the beach and such. Although many of the beaches we went to were just rocks. So I think that's a lot around that. Croatia, Albania, the Adriatic is like that. Nice views, but then you're laying on the sand and you're just laying on pebbles. You got to have a lawn chair or a beach chair out there. But I'd go back.
Did you mentioned the trip to Bosnia and Herzegovina? Did you drive there, and or like what was your perception of that area, especially compared to like some of the things that we're talking about with like places like Croatia, for example?
It reminded me more of Turkey than Croatia or Europe. We took the bus from Split. Yeah. And then we went back and then got our rental car and drove into Montenegro. I can't remember why. I think because it was a bit farther, we had to go through a couple of border crossings and we just went for a few days. So I stayed in Mostar and my friends went on to Sarajevo, but I was sick. So I just stayed in Mostar. And Mostar is like this little beautiful bubble. And, you've got the Starry Most Bridge, the river passing through there, and it's this teal turquoise color. And this town is split on the river, and it's really pretty walking streets. It kind of reminded me of Game of Thrones. I know Dubrovnik is King's Landing, but I really feel like Mostar has that vibe as well. It's like, yeah, Game of Thrones, King's Landing mixed with Turkey. And I was very surprised to see the mix of religions there living quite harmoniously, although wasn't always that way, of course. But you would see people like women dressed in full burqas and then girls wearing crop tops and mini skirts right next to them. And that's not something you typically see. Maybe in Beirut. I haven't been to Lebanon, but I've heard it's like kind of a mix over there. And you'd see a mosque next to a church. And then there's also people that aren't religious at all. So, in that sense, it kind of reminded me of Turkey, where you see all different types of mosques and churches all mixed together. And so I really like to see that. And it was also that way in Shkoder, Albania. It felt like kind of a mix of people and religions and everything. So I didn't do that much research there. I would like to go back and explore more, but it is also very stunning to see there's buildings that still have bullet holes and that are still bombed out from the war. So it's a bit unnerving to see that, but it is just a reminder of pretty recent history in the 90s. And traveling through the Balkans, a lot of the locals that I met, people that were my age or younger, they all had memories of, air raid warnings and getting bombed by NATO and money having no value and not being able to buy eggs at the grocery store and all the things that happened during war. And they're such peaceful places now that it's just, yeah, hard to wrap your head around what happened there. And you still see a lot of evidence of that.
Yeah, I've actually the CEO of the company that I work for full time. His name's Amir. He grew up in Bosnia. He's Bosnian by birth, and he's around our age. And he escaped Bosnia during the war, and his family actually owned a grocery store, like a small grocery store there in Bosnia at the time. So they escaped as like refugees, and I actually did an interview with him on About Abroad talking about his memories because he remembers this as a kid, escaping with fake passports and, spending months on the road to eventually what became their new home as refugees in Denmark, where he grew up most of his life. And so I like the reason the story in and of itself is fascinating if you read it like a book from 100 years ago or something. But I mean, it's so recent and relatively like unknown that I don't think this is a conflict that a lot of us grow up learning a ton about as kids. So it's like, when I interact every single day with the guy that I report to who like literally went through that as a kid, it's fascinating because as you say, like when you're there, it's like this is so picturesque and beautiful. And you see people just like taking pictures and enjoying that beautiful river and the bridge. And it's like, yeah, not that long ago, this was like quite a scary place. And so there's something very fascinating about that, like mixed in with the fact that on top of the fact that it's just like an incredible place to go visit.
It just reminds you that in war, most of the people are just civilians and don't want that. It's just a few people that are making it dangerous for everyone else. And that's the same in Ukraine and in Gaza. People just want to live their lives and drink coffee next to the river and enjoy their day and talk to their friends and walk to the shops and just live life. And so, yeah, it just makes me sad that that personal freedom is taken from so many people around the world that are just in the wrong place at the wrong time, really.
Yeah, 100% true. I think that's part of one of the joys of travel, like at least for me, as I've grown up and like experienced different parts of the world, like I always kind of come back to the cliche that like the more people I meet from different corners of the globe, it's like we are more alike than we are different, and people kind of just generally want the same sorts of things. And especially now, like things are so political and polarizing, and you hear like these horrific headlines in the media, and it's like, my experience is I talk to this person from this part of the world, and like they pretty much want the exact same things we do and think the same way we do, perhaps with a different religion or political view or something. But like generally speaking, they just kind of all want the same things. And there's something equalizing about that.
Yeah, people get dehumanized a lot in the media, but if you get to talk to those people in person, it would just be like, like talking to anyone. And I remember going to Costa Rica when I first started learning Spanish, And I would read the newspaper and read the news websites and talk to taxi drivers and all the things that you do when you're trying to learn a language. And I learned a lot about the political system in Costa Rica and just the politics of the day. And then you start to overhear, what are people talking about? They're talking about soccer, they're gossiping, they're complaining about inflation and the politicians. It's like the same story everywhere, but just different people and different people in power. And so I guess we kind of all have that in common as a global society, people in Costa Rica and people in Bosnia, they're reading the headlines, rolling their eyes and have the same reactions.
Actually, it's so funny you mentioned that because I'd sort of told you a little bit about this off air, but like so my wife and I are exploring the idea of moving our residency from Spain to other countries. It's like one of the things we went through when we were doing our visa renewal. Basically, like after 5 years of temporary residency, you can apply for permanent residency. And there's two paths you can go. You can do like Spanish permanent residency or EU permanent residency, and the latter is harder to get, but it gives you access to moving to different countries in the EU if you choose to do so. So anyway, long story short, we went that route, and now we're just sort of like when we're in some of these different countries, we're just going through the process of seeing like if we wanted to move here, like while we're here, let's figure out what that would look like. And so the reason I mention all that is because we're here in Italy right now, and we're like, oh, we like it. Like, let's see what it would be like if we wanted to move here. And so we just kind of went through like some of the basic steps of doing that, which involves going to some of these like immigration offices. And you're sitting in there, like I've done this now in probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 different countries where you're trying to get a visa. And so you're sitting in there with people from all around the world. Like everybody is a foreigner. Almost nobody speaks the local language. You have people that have literally just gotten off refugee boats to super rich people that are on the golden visa that are, trying to figure out how to do the exact same thing. And it is so equalizing. Like you find you're standing in there with people from all around the world in totally different situations. And you're like, same sort of thing, rolling your eyes at the bureaucracy or trying to figure out who's next in line. People are looking at headlines in papers, and English is somewhat of a common language, so you have some like unity around that. But I don't know, it's like it's never a fun thing to go to these places, but it's also like something kind of entertaining and like humanizing about it because it's a level playing field.
Yeah, it really grounds you and kind of brings you back to, I always feel like I'm at school when I have to go to the embassy because they're very stern. You go there, you take off your backpack, no phones and wait in line and no information. You're just like, when's lunch break? Just sitting there waiting for the bell.
You have your stack of papers that was your homework to do, and you probably got it wrong.
Probably, yeah. 95% chance you don't have the right paperwork. Got to go back and try again. But it is something that like brings us all together as humans. So what happened with your plan, El Plan, to move from Spain to Italy? And if you do move to Italy, will you stay in the Dolomites where you are now, or will you go somewhere else?
Oh, good question. So we're just exploring the option right now. Like we came here for a few months and rented an Airbnb, like amazing. Actually, I kind of came here because of the Airbnb. Usually it's the other way around of like you choose the place and then you find the you choose the destination and then you find the home that you want to live in. In this case, we had just experienced like a crazy heat wave down in Crete. Is like Crete was awesome for beach vibes and that sort of thing, but like we were like, oh man, I really want mountains and green and nature, and I've only spent a little bit of time up in the Dolomites. Like I wonder if I could just find something generally up in northern Italy. And I found this like incredible Airbnb that just was so perfect for everything we were looking for. And so we just like on the spot decided to rent it and take the ferry and like fly up to not fly like take the ferry up to northern Italy and stay here. And then once we got here, we really enjoyed it. And we were like, this could be a landing spot for us if we decide to actually go through with moving from Spain. So Right now, it's just like a TBD thing. Like we're checking out what the process is. It's very bureaucratic. Like our immigration lawyer is saying, like, expect this to be challenging, even though you have everything you need. If you decide to do it, it's like it's a process because Italy makes things a little more complicated than they need to be. But it could be worth it. I mean, this is a beautiful part of the world. Like, I know you've spent time here, but it's just I love the fusion of like what you find in Central Europe being so close to so many different countries, and like things in Northern Italy work really well. Like it had like the infrastructure is really strong, and so obviously the nature speaks for itself. Yeah, there's a lot to love.
Does it have like an Austrian, Swiss, German reliability about it?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's quite nice. Like that actually, so something I learned, you may know this already, but like this region that we're in, there's Trentino and Alto Adige, or also called Südtirol in German, which both used to be, they're like provinces or regions in Italy that until World War One were part of Austria. And so they're now autonomous regions that like operate separately from the rest of Italy in terms of like how they self-govern in a lot of ways. So they're just doing things in their own way, and they kind of have that like Austrian influence. But what I think is really cool is like where I'm located, it's like an hour to a town called Bolzano, which is like feels like you're in Austria. Like people speak German, people are walking around wearing the Bavarian garb, that kind of thing. And then like less than an hour to the south, you have Verona, which feels like quintessentially Mediterranean, Italian. Like it kind of looks like a little Rome to me in a way. And so two very different cultures and architectures and everything, like both within a relatively short period.
I have Verona in my 100 places to visit video, and I loved researching it. I want to go to Romeo and Juliet's house, obviously.
Very
Or,
cute. It's worth stopping by.
yeah. So, are you in a very rural area? Like, I envision you guys just in this snow capped mountain in a forest in the middle of nowhere. Or are you in a town? Are you around other people?
Yeah, there's so I have like some minimum standards that I have to have for anything like beyond a couple weeks. And one of them is like I need to be at least biking distance, ideally like walking distance to some basic amenities, like co-working space would be one of those things, gym and grocery stores and things like that. So kind of, with unless there's like some rare exception, like that's always going to be a minimum for us. But we happen to find this house that has like some green space, beautiful views of the snow-capped Dolomites that I'm looking at right behind your face here out my window
I'm looking
as we
at
speak.
palm trees.
I think the palm trees sound good right now, to be honest. It's still a little chilly here you know in March, um but then we can actually we're in a town called Trento. So Trento is like 100,000 people. So it's a decent sized little city with an English speakers group that gets together and does stuff. There's a couple co-working spaces, some cafes, good restaurants, and I think the best part about the area like is just the act like within an hour you can just be doing so much. You have Lake Garda close by. I mentioned Verona, Bolzano. Some of the best skiing in the Alps is all around. So like for wintertime, that's been amazing. But I never knew about Trento, and it's like a beautiful little city. Like I didn't know anything about it before this. And so that's what's so fun is like as we've been on this journey, we're still exploring and like discovering so much. And sometimes I'm still kind of like blown away by that. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen Italy. Like I've done most of the things, but this is a whole new area that I just discovered.
Yeah, that's kind of the danger of this lifestyle is that the more you uncover, the more there is to explore. It's basically like self-development. The deeper you go, the more you find. But yeah, I mean, do you think that you'll keep traveling then, or do you see yourself settling down in Italy or somewhere else and selling the van?
I think we'll keep traveling for a little bit longer just because like we do need to explore a couple more places, quotations around need, I guess. But I could definitely see like I think we're sort of split right now about moving back to Valencia, because we do kind of have like a home base there. Life would be very simple to slip back into in Valencia. And there's something very appealing about that. And at the same time, like I think if I could just like snap my fingers, I would love to just kind of like stay in Central Europe, a little bit more in Central Europe, be closer to the mountains, and create a little bit of a life here. But it'll always involve a lot of getting up and going, just maybe a slightly different home base.
Yeah. There's always so many smaller places to explore. Like you go to Rome, or you go to Tuscany, or you go to the Amalfi Coast and kind of hit the big popular areas. But then there is so much more. And even being in Tulum, people were talking about Bacalar, which is a lake, I believe, a couple hours south of there. It's like you look at the Yucatan Peninsula and there's so much to see, and it's huge. I mean, it takes 2 or 3 hours to get from Cancun to Tulum, and then from Tulum up to Merida, and that's just a tiny little corner. And then you can just keep going, and you could spend your whole life in Mexico and not even see a fraction of it. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's definitely like that in Europe. And I actually talked to an Italian guy who I interviewed during the Nomad Island Fest in Madeira last year. He was one of the organizers, and he actually recommended Lake Garda. So everyone talks about Lake Como, but then you have Lake Garda, which is just as beautiful or more beautiful and probably more affordable. And so, yeah, it's very appealing. But I guess we go on this lifelong journey of travel. But I know I definitely am. I know I go through phases in different years where I feel like I just want to take my backpack and go explore. And then there's other times where I feel like I want to make a home somewhere and just be boring, and also work on my projects and my business and not feel that FOMO like I felt in Tulum. I really didn't do much sightseeing or anything. I mean, I did go to the beach a couple of times, but I either went at the end of the day at sunset or at sunrise before I started working or doing other things. And then you see other people that are just, riding their bicycles and relaxing and just having fun because they're on vacation. And so sometimes you can feel like that in this lifestyle where you want to experience, you want to travel because we're travelers, and you want to sightsee and you want to experience those places, but then you also need to pay the bills, and you have responsibilities, and you want to have a personal life and all these things. So I know I talk about slow travel a lot, and probably you do too, but that's why I like that you and your wife are doing, 3 or 4 months in these places, because it gives you that time to get to know a place, but also live a normal life and work and do all of those other things.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you in partnership with my friends over at Nomad & Co. If you're planning a retreat, offsite, or group gathering of any kind this year, I highly suggest tapping into their extensive knowledge and experience to help you find the best possible venue for your event. I work with Kim, who has become my trusted advisor when it comes to planning any event around the world, and she's literally saved me hundreds of hours of work and has located venues I never would have found on my own. She even provides me with budget breakdowns and cost estimates for each location I'm interested in, and negotiates contract terms on my behalf, all for free. If it sounds too good to be true, I thought the exact same thing at first, but I can assure you this is the real deal. Lamont is paid by the venues, not by you, so there's no cost, risk, or obligation here. So do yourself a favor and contact Lamont via the link in the show notes when you're planning your next group, retreat, offsite, or gathering. Before we dive back into the rest of the interview, I have a small favor to ask of the audience. If you are enjoying this episode and getting some value out of it, then please follow these very simple instructions. Step 1, pick up your phone. I'll give you a second. Step 2, leave a 5-star review for About Abroad. That's it. That's all I'm asking. It takes about 2 seconds. Of course, it is completely free to you, and it is the best possible way to support myself, the show, and everyone working on About Abroad behind the scenes. The funny thing is that there are thousands of people tuning into this show every single week, but we are very likely to only get a few reviews by industry standards, and reviews are the most impactful way that you can show support for the show. So if you have the time, please do so. And either way, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Yeah, it's a fun pace to be experiencing right now, and I'm curious about that for you because, like you mentioned, these different chapters. What chapter do you feel like you're in right now, and is that going to be the case for a while, or are things changing for you on the horizon?
Things seem to happen organically when I have an idea that I want to go somewhere or I want to travel, and then the scenario comes together where it works out. It was like that when I wanted to go to Southeast Asia back in 2014, and then my friend invited me to meet her in the Philippines on a business trip, and then we traveled to Thailand and went around. It was like that with Tulum. It was like that last year when I wanted to go to the UK, and I pretty easily found the type of house that I was looking for, and I found a really good flight, and everything just like came together to go there. And I feel like this year, I don't know if I've mentioned this on my podcast, but my sister's pregnant with her first baby, and she's due in June. So I wanted to be around the US for like before and after the baby's born. I might go and visit her before and then also go after. Had she not gotten pregnant, my idea was to spend this year in Eastern Europe. Many people know that I've been trying to get another citizenship. So I wanted to go, get the paperwork, go over there. And I just really like living in Europe. So I'm sure I would have been on my way back to Europe. I had a trip planned to Portugal in April with traveling with Kristin community, but we had to cancel it. So it was like, okay, I'll go to Portugal in April and then I'll stay in Europe for the rest of the year. But then the trip got canceled. My sister got pregnant. And so now I'm here. And actually, a friend saw another friend's post on Instagram that she was subletting her apartment, and she sent it to me. She was like, "Oh, Kristin, are you interested in renting something here?" And I reached out to the girl, and it was like a perfect scenario. I mean, she felt like a friend or a sister. We had so much in common. Her apartment is beautiful. It's right on the water in North Bay Village in Miami. And I went to go see it, and it's like just the perfect setup. It's a good price point. I'm basically just paying her long-term rent. It's not like an Airbnb where I'm paying a big markup. And it's available for 4 months or 4.5 months, and it's fully furnished. And I can just move in there and just, yeah, be 20 minutes from the airport if I want to go somewhere, be able to go visit my sister. So I think I'm just going to stay here this year and focus on work and my YouTube channel and videos and things, and then travel again later. So I've gotten into this habit of spending spring and summer in Europe, and I really want to go in the winter. I want to go skiing. So I'm thinking I'll stay stateside with, doing some side trips where I just take a carry-on or something, not bringing my whole life around with me. And then I have this rental until October 1st. And then after that, maybe go back to Europe, spend the winter skiing somewhere. I would really want to go to Georgia. I've never been there. And kind of do things the other way around. So that's kind of the plan for now. Like this just really just fell into my lap. And so I'm going to be in Florida dog sitting for my parents while they're in Germany. They're going to Munich. They're going to California. They're going to California twice, actually. So basically, whenever I'm in the US, they say, "Oh, can you watch the dog?" And we'll go travel.
Kristin's home.
Yeah.
Let's
So
put
it
her to
works.
work.
Works for me. I have a whole office there with a monitor and stuff, and I get to walk the dog and chilling. I'm chilling. So basically, I'm back in the US but I'll be leaving before the elections. That's the key part. Everybody wants to leave before November, and I'll definitely be one of them.
Nice, nice. I think it's, you know what, we talked about this a little bit. Like, it's interesting you mentioned Florida, and I just hosted a retreat in Miami that went exceptionally well. I think we had people from like 15 different countries that came, and I will admit, like, there wasn't it worked out logistically to do it in Miami, but it wasn't like people weren't necessarily stoked about it. We've done these retreats in other places like, Barcelona and in the Alps, and Lisbon, and other, like, a lot of like European locations. And so anyway, this time we came to Miami, and I think people kind of had, like, I don't know, there's the stereotypical perception coming in was like South Beach, I guess. It was just like, okay, we're going to go to South Beach essentially to do a retreat and like meeting. Like, I don't know how this is going to work. And anyway, it went like incredibly well. People raved about it, loved the location. And you and I both have some like roots in Miami in a way. And so, like, I don't know, I was just kind of wondering, like, do you think of it like as you travel, like, do people around the world think of Miami as a destination, and does it meet those standards, exceed them, come below them? Like, what is your thoughts?
It depends what you're coming here for. I've always loved Miami because my mom is from Miami Springs and I grew up in Miami Springs visiting my grandparents. I have just so many fond memories of playing on the golf course grass and riding my bike around the neighborhood and shopping at Piggly Wiggly. And I don't know, I just have this so nostalgic for me to be here. And so I wanted to move to Miami when I graduated from college. I majored in international business and I thought I can get a job working in the port of Miami. I can work with international companies, import, export. I went to these Latin American business conferences in Gainesville at University of Florida and throughout Florida, and I was trying to find a way to meld together my Spanish speaking background with business, and it just wasn't working out. And then I got a job offer to go to Costa Rica, and then the rest is history, So I'm glad I didn't come then. I think my life would have been a lot different, but I always wanted to spend some time here, and so I graduated from college 2005, and I didn't actually live here until 2020, basically February, March of 2020 when the pandemic happened. So now that I've spent so much time here, I could see it being a place to come back to. But the downside is that the cost of living is really high. The traffic is really bad. So it's fine if you're retired or if you're working online and you don't have to go places during the middle of the day. But I think I mentioned this to somebody else or on the podcast. I spent $37 on an omelet and a green juice this week. And I went to pay and I had to ask her, "Can you check the bill? Is that correct?" Yeah, so it's just exorbitantly expensive here, but if you want that luxurious experience where you're going out on yachts and having bottle service and nice restaurants and things like that, it's really nice. And also if you just want to go to the beach, I mean the beaches are really beautiful. You can just get a condo or a hotel right on the beach and just walk out there and never gets old. The weather's so incredible. It's been 60 to 72 degrees and sunny and just nice in the winter. So, yeah, definitely people want to come here in the winter more than the summer. But then there's also a lot of art. There's a lot of galleries, there's museums, there's a Holocaust memorial. So there's also, a lot of things to do. And I was just hanging out with a friend from Germany. He went to the Everglades and went on the airboat and saw the crocodiles or alligators or whatever. So, there's also these side trips that you can do, sailing and stuff like that. So it is what it is. It's South Florida, but every time I drive over the bridge here or along the water, I'm just trying to look at the road because it's so beautiful. You just want to look out at the window at the islands and everything and the scenery. So it's really nice, but of course, you guys were in Coconut Grove, so that's where I used to stay, and that's also a very picturesque place. What do you think people liked about it there?
Well, I think that's a huge part of it is like where we stayed in Coconut Grove. And if you're, if you're someone that's like hosting an event, you want walkability and maybe to get away from the like luxe vibe that you might get elsewhere, like the clubby vibe. I think the Grove is an awesome destination. You and I talked about it, and I know you agree, but it kind of has that like a little bit like a European town in a way. Like it just you're walking by, there's lots of people out, there's cafes, there's people sitting outside. We walked from our Airbnbs, which were scattered throughout the Grove, to our co-working space right there at Coco Walk in the center
I've worked
spaces.
there. Yes.
Yeah. It's so I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what really did it. I also think like like people that have spent time in Miami or in Florida may know this. I don't think it was well known with the group that was coming, but like Miami isn't Florida. Like it's like there's two. It's a separate thing in a lot of ways, and so people were really kind of like enamored by. I think they had a perception of what like the South in the U.S. would be like. Like they just draw some conclusions very quickly, and then they're like, oh wait, Miami's like very very different, and like and in fact in a lot of places like you can't even speak English. It's very international. Spanish is like very heavily used or even like required in some instances, and we happen to have a lot of Spanish speakers there. We did like a little Havana night and went out to like some really cool restaurants in Little Havana, and so I think it gave us this like very international experience, which for a very international group who was coming to the US, I think that was like a very fun surprise for them.
I think you picked the best place to stay out of all of Miami for a retreat because Coconut Grove is like also like a bubble. It's this tropical canopy of beautiful old growth trees and sidewalks with cafes like you mentioned. It does feel very European in the downtown area, and then you have the marina which basically borders the entire neighborhood and just has these beautiful white boats dotted out in the sparkling water with islands, and it's just so idyllic there and really good food. I think there's even some Michelin star restaurants down there, good music. And little known fact, Chase, I think probably the highest density of gelato places on the planet. You can't go half a block without ice. Everyone's eating ice cream 24/7 down there.
That's true. Yeah, there are ice cream stores everywhere, and my European counterparts really appreciated that dessert was available after lunch. My American counterparts still don't get that, like, but
Although you may pay $14 for a single gelato scoop, but
yeah, the
that's
the prices that you mentioned are real. Like that's a huge adjustment. I actually like looked. There was this like because you do this when you live like you and I do. Like everywhere you are, you're like, ooh, what are the property prices here? What are the rental prices? And there was like an ad in one of the coffee shops for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath apartment. And like in my head, I've just gotten used to like being over here in Europe and paying what you pay for places. And I like so in my head, I just had a baseline like and then I just 2x'd it like, oh, it'll be 2x of what I'm kind of thinking it is. And I like scanned the little QR code for the ad. And it was literally 5x what like my normal mindset would think to pay for a 2 bedroom apartment there. So yeah, I mean, the prices are what they are. But setting that aside, like I was just really pleasantly surprised. Returning, I was actually born in Miami, though I moved when I was young. And like I just returning to it for this experience and hearing all the great reviews, it was like it was a warm, fuzzy feeling that it went well and that people enjoyed this city. So it's cool that you've kind of made it your home.
yeah. And what was this retreat that you did? Was this part of your company or is it something that people can join in on?
Yeah, it's part of my company. So for like anybody that doesn't know me, hearing me for the first time, like my full time job is as the head of remote at a fully remote company called Doist, and we have people spread around like 35 countries. And one of my jobs as to bring us together a few times a year for retreats. So like this was what we call our mini retreats, where we had 10 teams in 10 locations doing their individual retreats, and then later in the year we'll do like a all hands, bring everyone together to one location. And for this year we're going to Ireland for that. We've rented a castle outside of Dublin for a week, so looking forward to that.
Nice. Okay, well, let's all apply for jobs at Doist so we can go on these retreats. But in all seriousness, this must really help with team building, productivity. I think it's so much different when you meet people in person. Like you and I met in person at Running Remote in Montreal. And I already felt like we were friends before, internet friends, but just being able to see people a couple of days in a row and talk to them or have a coffee or whatever, it really helps you deepen that friendship. Do you find that the company operates much better because of these retreats?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, like just today before our call here, I was like analyzing the post retreat survey that I send out. Like, so basically, like just gathering feedback from everyone on their experience. And we try to like quantifiably measure the impact of these things, which can be like admittedly like it's not perfect and it's kind of tough to do because, who's going to complain about a week at a castle in Ireland? Like, people are going to be happy, but we are trying to measure things like, do you feel more connected to your teammates? Did you build trust? Do you feel more aligned with our mission statement? Do you feel more equipped to like handle the tasks that are put in front of you? And so a variety of things like this. It's like 15 pages of summarized data, so quite a bit. But yeah, like we can quantifiably and qualitatively also say like this works. We invest a ton in it. Like it's a huge percentage of our revenue, but it's something that like when I talk with my CEO, he's like, I want to invest more in these. We were together there in Miami and we were actually having that conversation. He's like, yeah, I want us to like actually invest more because these are such a great return on investment.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that's so nice about working with a remote company, like or a regular company. When I was working with International Living last year, it was really nice to go to Ireland and meet the team. And they also work out of a castle. That's what you do in Ireland. You work out of a castle in the countryside. And yeah, just looking out the window, it does it makes things feel a bit different than if you're just in a cubicle somewhere or by yourself at home, which I do also really love working at home. But I like that balance between being able to come back and work at home, but then a couple times a year meet up with people in person and just remember, what you're working for. And that's why I wanted to do retreats with subscribers and listeners of the podcast and people from my community, like people I've been messaging with for 5 years or reading their comments. I thought it would be such a good opportunity to meet all in person. So I scheduled this trip to Portugal, and then now we rescheduled it for Costa Rica. But it's I don't know. I mean, it's definitely hard to plan. You plan this retreat for your company in Miami. Like it's so hard to plan a trip like that and then also align with people of what dates are they available and what their budget is and how many days can they go for and everything. So I hope that we have a good group. Right now there's 6 of us, but we can have up to 24 people. So that's going to be my next big trip, hopefully, if we can fill it up in August to the northwest part of Costa Rica to the Gulf of Papagayo. And yeah, just be able to hang out with people, have dinner, have breakfast, go to the beach, go on the boat, watch the sunset, and just live.
I have you I might have missed this in the description a second ago. Did you already fix the dates or are you still exploring the dates?
Yes, we're doing August 9th through 12th.
Nice.
Yeah. And I haven't been to Costa Rica since 2017. So I'm really excited to go back there. It's just 4 days long weekend, but go to the hot springs and have some good Costa Rican food and yeah, just hang out. So if I could, I would, bring hundreds of people down there and have a big event. But, maybe that's something that I could do in the future because I've been to so many events and conferences, and that's really the best part about this lifestyle is, of course, I love traveling. I love traveling by myself. I love just sitting, waiting for the train in Cascais in Portugal and just watching the sunset and like just being there or wherever you are in the world. I think it's so cool. But then it's also so nice to be able to meet with people in person. And even a girl that I met on the Nomad cruise from Spain to Brazil this year, she happened to be in Tulum. And we found out during the co-working, we were in the same WhatsApp group. And so I met up with her at this event, this like night market in Tulum, where it's a lot of locals and foreigners, and there's food, there's drinks, bars, salsa dancing. It's like one of those big community gatherings. And so we got to meet up there. And those are this kind of the network that you can build wherever you go. And even I was here in Miami when you were here, and we tried to meet up for a coffee, but we were or a tea in my case, but we were too busy. But just being able to meet up with people around the world is really, I think, what adds so much richness to this lifestyle.
100% true. Like I couldn't agree more. I was bummed that we couldn't meet up when I was there.
I was on my way to Mexico. That was it.
I know. Yeah. You were on your way to Mexico. I was there hosting a retreat. It was like the timing didn't align. We knew we had this on the horizon, so we were going to get to catch up. In a way, I'm kind of glad because we would have covered some of the things that we're getting to cover here today, and then we would have had to like fake it. Maybe, I don't know. That would have been weird. So maybe this would have never happened. But two things I wanted to mention real quick. One, will we? Hopefully we can place a link in the show notes on both podcasts for people that might be interested in your Costa Rica retreat. So do you have that available, and can we add that to the show notes?
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the link. And I think we have 2 early bird spots left. And so that makes the trip $17.99, and it includes accommodation, meals, and tours, activities, things like that. And so I'll send you that link, and maybe we can get some About Abroaders over.
Yeah. I hope people from the About Abroad community will obviously listen to your podcast, but then also consider joining you there. The second thing was you mentioned the Nomad cruise, which I'm so glad you brought up because I've been dying to hear a review of how this went. And like maybe for some people, like at least in my audience, they may not know a whole lot. I've had Johannes, the founder of Nomad Cruise, on the show before, but like that's been a year and a half or so. So I bet a lot of people don't have some context. Like, could you share a little bit about what it is? And then like, I would love to hear how you felt it went.
Yeah, so the Nomad Cruise is a floating conference for digital nomads. So Johannes, the founder of Nomad Cruise, he and his team will reserve a block of rooms on a cruise ship and then fill them with digital nomads, travelers, entrepreneurs, aspiring digital nomads, remote workers. And I think there are usually about 500 attendees on these cruises. So you've got the people that are just on the cruise, for the unlimited all you can eat buffet and the pool and everything. But then you've got the nomad cruisers who are there to meet people and network and learn and go to talks and events and things like that. So this was my third cruise. I went on, the first one was in 2018 from Spain to Greece. And then I did Spain to Brazil the same year because I had so much fun. And then it was the pandemic. And then this was their first one that they did since the pandemic, the first big one. And it was from the Canary Islands to Brazil. And then I stayed there in Brazil for a while. And we, like a big portion of us, maybe 100 or 150 people, would stay in the same area in Brazil in a place called Baja in Salvador. And then we went to this little island called Mojo de Sao Paulo. And it's just this tropical, beautiful island with, 80 or 100 digital nomads on it, as well as the locals and the tourists and the other people. But really a cool experience. And it takes a lot of time. It's a big chunk of time because the cruise is usually a week to 2 weeks, and then you're traveling there and then you're staying there after. And a lot of people went down to Sao Paulo and Rio and continued traveling together after that, in some cases for months later. But if you're looking for community, then I don't think there's any better option than Nomad Cruise because you're stuck on a boat together. So you just get to know people. Every day you see the same people, but then you also meet new people. Like on the last day, you'll be like, oh, here's this new person I haven't seen in 10 days, but then you become friends while waiting to check out and get off the boat. So it's a fun experience, and it's a bit exhausting. I was giving a talk there, I was attending the other talks, I was filming videos, I was catching up with old friends, making new friends, traveling around. So it was a whirlwind, but the next one's going to be really cool. It's going from Vancouver to Japan, and that is this September, I believe, September, October. So we can also add that link to your show notes if people want to check it out. I think there's still availability on that one. And Vancouver, Canada, and Japan are, I think they're going to Tokyo. Those are two of my favorite cities. So that's going to be amazing. I might have to jump on that one.
I might have to jump on that one too. I've been really wanting to go to Japan, and now that they have the digital nomad visa, it's like becoming more of a long-term destination that you can go explore. So it's on the radar for me as well. On the Nomad cruise, I'm curious, like how would you say the divide is between like, you know, R&R, like free time versus like structured sessions and work, and then like, I don't know, like fun activities. If you could kind of put them in like three buckets. If that doesn't make sense, throw that out the window and answer it however you want.
Yeah, it's really like you can pick, like choose by number how you want to spend your day. There's people that skip all of the talks and they're just there to have fun and everything, but there's something scheduled almost all day and into the night. Like there are people staying up to see the sunrise and just talking. Like I actually DJ'd on the boat too. I forgot about that. I did 2 or 3 DJ sets on the boat, and then one day after that we were all at the little disco club on the top deck of the boat, and I was talking with a guy who is a digital nomad family. I think they're based in Spain, but they also travel around. So he's married with 2 kids, and I think he's from California. You just meet very interesting people that are very successful or doing cool things. And we're just talking with another girl up there, and all of a sudden the sun is coming up. And I was like, I need to go to bed because you're near the equator. You're literally cross the equator. So it's like the sun comes up pretty early. But yeah, you can just wake up in the morning, and after breakfast there's sessions that usually start around 9 or 10 and go into the afternoon, and then there's also other breakout sessions that attendees can organize their own sessions that aren't on the cruise itinerary. So then there's breakout sessions that are happening through dinner, and then after that, and then there's usually every night some sort of event, whether it's I think one was like a failure night, or an F up night where you talk about that. One was a talent show. We had the DJ stuff going on, um, masterminds. There's all sorts of different things happening at night. So you could do things all day long, or you could just, take the day off and hang out by the pool and get room service, which I also did some work because we had the Starlink internet. So I did some work and some writing. It's not very fast, but you can at least answer emails and things like that. But some people totally disconnect and they're like, phone is off for 2 weeks.
Nice. Oh, I love it. I love the optionality and kind of like build your own adventure approach. Just let people figure out what works best for them, show up as the best versions of themselves for whatever activities they choose to. And like at the same time, like, you can get something positive out of the experience professionally. Like it's not just a party. So like if you want to grow and, better yourself, you have that at your disposal, but also nice to kick back and just like socialize with people that you have a lot in common with.
Yeah, there's people there that don't drink at all, like me. Actually, I remember the first one I went on, I met people that were like, "No, we don't drink." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Because the bar is open, you can get a drink package, you know? But yeah, this time I didn't, well, because I don't really drink anymore, and it was just as fun as the other times. Actually, it was better because I was never hungover. So I was just wake up and be ready to face the day. But actually, afterwards is very fun as well because we went to that little place called Mojo de Sao Paulo, which is very remote. And one day I was just walking on the beach and I ended up meeting up with other Nomad cruisers and we walked for hours all the way down to the fifth beach. So the beaches are first beach, second beach, third beach, fourth. No one goes beyond second or third beach. It's like no man's land out there. And we walked for hours and got very sunburnt and then found this beautiful spot at the end and watched the sunset and then found somebody at a hotel that knew a taxi driver and we got picked up in this old rickety truck and took us on these back bumpy dirt roads past the little airstrip and through the local town where they were having some sort of fiesta. Well, I don't know what's the word in Brazil in Portuguese for party, but they were having like this big event in the town and it just felt, I was like, wow, we're outside the tourist area. This is like where the real people live. And that was really cool because it wasn't planned at all. It's just went for a walk and then ended up spending the whole day walking and talking with people and then an adventure on the way back. So that's kind of the magic of it.
What an epic experience. Oh, I'm dying to get on one of those. It hasn't aligned with my schedule so far, but I think it's funny because you're saying this is a year of less travel and I'm just thinking about like all the things that we've talked about so far. I'm like when you talk to Kristin Wilson, this is a year of little travel, but for a lot of people you've done a lifetime in the last 6 months and the 6 months that are coming. So
Yeah, I will say I had a moment in Tulum because this lifestyle, it is crazy when you think about it. I mean, it's so amazing in so many ways, but then you also are living your normal life. So you have those low periods when you aren't with other people or which you need to be by yourself sometimes and not always surrounded by big groups of party people. But like in Tulum, I was trying to reopen my bank account that was deactivated because of like in the pandemic, my debit card expired. I couldn't access my online banking anymore. I'm locked out of two bank accounts right now, the Mexican one and the Costa Rican one. And it took me 4 or 5 days of going to the bank, sitting in the bank. At least you can use your phone in there now. So I'm like answering email, reading books, sitting in there. Like there's so many still like frustrating things, but then very contemplative moments because you don't want to get desensitized to this lifestyle. So when I'm sitting on the beach in Tulum in this biosphere reserve, it's completely like a postcard. There's no people around. And it just makes me ponder the meaning of life, Jace. I'm just sitting on the beach watching the sunrise, like, what are we doing here in the world? And I don't know,
and
sometimes.
why am I so fortunate to get to live my dream and why don't I appreciate it as much as I should sometimes? That's a thought that creeps in for me and I gathering from you as well.
Yeah, like sometimes I think I do take it for granted or I get wrapped up in small dramas like, oh, this is taking so long or this went wrong or it's hot or the internet's out or the power's out and it's sometimes like, okay, like wake up and remember what's important and also thinking ahead of how this all works together in your life. It's kind of hard to explain, but like traveling for the sake of travel for me isn't fulfilling. It's just an activity that I'm doing. And that kind of brings it full circle to why we're talking on this podcast right now, why I even have a podcast, why I have a YouTube channel. It's like trying to share about these places and about these experiences and the highs and lows and everything, at least this makes me feel like I'm traveling for a purpose. Do you relate to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this little stint that I've been on has been eye-opening in that way because I've also gone through these different chapters of this side of my life with, travel and exploration and being an expat and trying to like settle down in various countries around the world. Like there's been different phases where I approached it from different vantage points, and returning to the kind of nomadic lifestyle was like so exciting at first. Like day one, it was just, I remember like my wife and I were talking and I was like, I never want to not do this again. Like we got sedentary for too long. We were in one place for 4 years. Like I'm ready. I'm loving being on the road. And that's like still true to this day, but the novelty has worn off for sure. And there's less less enjoyment, like less, like if you have like a spectrum of like 1 to 10, with one being the worst day of your life and 10 being the best day of your life, and like early on in that exploration you're having a lot of like eights and nines. Like it's more like, sixes and sevens now, and you're also like missing out on some of the things that you really love about having like a more of a routine, more of a community around you, a home base. So you also throw in some more like twos and threes in there as well. And so it does make you like contemplate it. Like, am I just doing this because I'm like kind of addicted to it? Am I doing it for the right reasons? Like, are the sacrifices worth the highs that it gives you? And so it does become more of like you got to go a little bit introspective and figure out like, why am I doing this? I know why I'm attracted to it, and that'll always be the case. I doubt that'll ever change. But like, why am I doing this in the moment, and are the trade-offs worth it? Becomes more of a prevalent question.
Yeah, and how as a couple, and how many years have you guys been together?
We've been together for a very long time, like 17 years, and married for this our 10-year anniversary this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
I find it interesting that, you guys have kind of the same thoughts being in the same lifestyle, but totally different context, right? Like having residency in Spain and doing van life and living together for, over a decade and being married. So it's how do you find that as two people like coming together? Do you have these discussions, and does this affect, the decisions that you make in the future, or do you see yourselves having kids, and kind of what's next for Chase?
Yeah, it's a challenging thing to do this as a couple. Like it's hard enough as an individual because you have all the things to figure out, and so on the plus side, like you have two sets of hands instead of just one set of hands to
You
do
have
all the
someone to
things.
watch the luggage at the
Yeah,
airport.
exactly. Exactly. Or like, like split up like, hey, you're going to focus on visa stuff and I'm going to focus on housing stuff. Like that's really, really helpful. Fortunately, like you also have two brains involved and two hearts, and the brains and the hearts want different things sometimes. So marrying those things together when you have to make like a zillion decisions, and like I'm complaining about this sort of like half jokingly because like it's a obviously a privilege and it was our dream to live this way. So it's nobody's going to feel sorry for me saying these things, but it is funny sometimes because we are like, if we just lived a normal lifestyle, like we wouldn't have to make the like 60 decisions that we have to make this month that all have like sub bullet points underneath them and agree on all of them. So like that is a very real thing, and in fact like this stint of like traveling was totally initiated by my wife. And so this has happened multiple times in our relationship where like she's pushed us to go when I'm pretty cozy and comfortable. And that's why I've referenced that earlier. Actually, like day one, I was like, I was wrong. This is great. Like, I love being on the road again. Because she had really pushed for it. And, I was pretty comfortable there in Valencia living the way that we were. So it's funny. Like, yeah, you give it, you ebb and flow, you give and take. You make a lot of sacrifices and you try to like stay very like grounded in like ultimately we're doing what we want. Like, yeah, maybe you want this country and I want that country, or maybe you want to prioritize center city walking and I want to prioritize space, or you want to do visa stuff and I don't feel like doing visa stuff. Like you got to go through those things and make some sacrifices, but like ultimately you're grounded in the fact that like this is exactly what we set out to have, and we're super fortunate to be able to live this way. If you had asked us 5 years ago or 10 years ago, like if we could do this, we would have signed up in a heartbeat. So that's the grounding thought. But I won't lie, yeah, it leads to arguments and frustrations and disagreements about things. And I also wouldn't suggest like as glamorized as van life is a lot of times. Like living long term in a van in a small space as a couple is really really challenging. So for people that I've met, so many people that say, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to travel across Europe for a year with my significant other." I'm like, maybe you can do it. We can't. Max 1 month and we're like ready to kill each other. So
Well, you've made it this far. I mean, I think if you've been to so many countries together in so many situations over the years, like you guys can withstand anything.
yeah, yeah. It does like solidify a lot of things for you, and you go through some challenges, and then obviously you just get to experience lots of epic stuff that was, you're checking off bucket list items. We say often like the mundane feels exciting, like going to the grocery store in a new place feels exciting, and figuring out how to cook or figuring out like the new language. Like we've been taking Italian classes here together, and so like what would we do on a Tuesday evening back home? Like I don't know. We wouldn't be taking Italian classes or going to a cooking class, but like we're doing those things together here, and that's really fun.
You know what? You just inspired me to do some Airbnb experiences while I'm here.
Oh, like hosting, or are you gonna like?
No, like just go to, I don't know, a cooking class in Miami or some other tours and things.
Yeah, you have so much to explore.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more to just the boats and the parties and stuff around here. There's a lot to see. And also in, in everybody's hometowns. Like I'm from St. Augustine. It's the oldest European city continually inhabited in the United States. So there's a lot of old buildings and things, places I went when I was in high school on a field trip, but I wouldn't go back now. I'm like, maybe I'll go back there, or, try to see your local area from a different perspective, because not everybody that's listening can travel or travel as full time as we are, but there's definitely a lot to see if you just go deep into the area that you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. St. Augustine, that's a great comment there. Like that's such a hidden gem for people outside the US, like highly recommended. And that's cool that I didn't actually know that. So you grew up there?
Yeah, since I was 13. So I grew up in Vero Beach in Miami, and then St. Augustine for high school, and then Orlando for college. But I was talking to my parents, and none of us went downtown for the Nights of Lights. They put these white lights all over the downtown. It's completely beautiful, and the bridge. And it happens from December through January. And somehow, even though I was downtown multiple times, it was during the day. The traffic does get pretty bad at night, but all of us missed it. We missed the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. None of us saw the lights this year. And I was like, how did we go for 2 months without, I mean, I was in Brazil for most of December, so I got back at Christmas. So how did I go a whole month without going downtown one night to just walk around and admire the lights? And that's kind of what happens when you live somewhere, is you just go back to your routine and forget about all the other stuff. So hopefully people can find some new discovery, do something they've never done in their hometown, or that we all take things for granted because our brains are plastic and they're just trying to find the easiest way to get through the day. So we just ignore a lot of stuff.
That's so true. Yeah, you can adventure in your own backyard and have a lot of fun. Like if this type of lifestyle isn't calling to you, like do as much travel as Kristen and I do, but you just want to have some fun. Like don't forget that there's probably a whole wonderland of things to do within a couple hours of you, and I think it can be easy to overlook that. You asked me what's on the horizon for me. What's on the what's coming up for you? Anything exciting? Or you I know you got some, like, got to stay put a little bit, but anything that you're really looking forward to before the Costa Rica trip?
I felt like I kind of breezed right through from Christmas into New Year's. I didn't really get that time off to reset and think about, you know, like any specific things I wanted to do. I mean, I did a podcast episode about my goals for the year and my priorities, but my first big trip was that trip to Portugal in April. And now that that's not happening, I'm kind of resetting, like, okay, well, what is my next move? I think at this point for March, April, May, and through the summer, my biggest priority for the entire year is to get a second citizenship. And I did a video about getting that in Romania, but also from listening to your podcast, I'm revisiting possibly getting it in Italy. So I reached out to the guy that was a guest on your podcast about getting citizenship in Italy. And I'm going to explore if that's possible, if I qualify for it. And I'm going to try through all of my ancestral routes to get a second citizenship. At least one of them will work out, I feel like, as I could potentially get Irish, Italian, Hungarian, and Romanian. So that is my number one priority for the year. And it can only be done if I'm not traveling. So this time in Florida, like as soon I get back to my parents' house on Sunday. Today is Thursday. So in the next few days, like once I get back, that is my next big thing. And I honestly am not going to travel until that's done, because every single time I did it before, I would leave and then I would have to start over again.
The first time that a foreign passport, a second passport, is going to be the anchor that keeps you home in the U.S. But
I know, it's ironic.
It's necessary.
It's ironic.
That's a good goal to focus on, though. Like, that'll pay dividends over time. And it sounds like also, like, personally, you kind of have some reasons to stay home with your sister, and like maybe just a bit of needing to pump the brakes a little bit anyway. So the timing sounds perfect.
Aunt Kiki is going to be in the building. And now I'll have a nephew as well as a niece. So my niece is 9 and now a baby nephew. So I'm really, excited about that. This is going to be the year of family and paperwork.
Family and paperwork. I can't think of a better way to spend a year than those two things.
Maybe the family part and walking the dog. Well, I'm sure it's getting really late over there in Italy since we're so many hours apart. But I'm so glad that you had this idea for our little fireside chat. And everybody, so from the Badass Digital Nomad side, you guys definitely check out Chase's podcast About Abroad. It's amazing. We'll also link to your last interview about getting permanent residency in Spain. That was a few years ago. So I think a lot of people will be interested in listening back to that one and learning more about your life in Valencia. And then for hi to the About Abroad people, and I hope that you guys come over and listen to some of Badass Digital Nomads. We have 250 episodes, so I'm sure you can find something that you're interested there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge fan. I've been a fan of Kristin's before we were friends, so it's been very cool for me to get to know you since then, and just followed all your work for so long, and appreciate what you've contributed to people like myself who aspired to live this type of lifestyle. So much fun catching up with you. I'm glad we did it this way. As much as it would have been great to meet up in person, I'm glad that the About Abroad audience gets to be introduced to you this way. We also have a previous episode with you sharing a bit more of your personal story from back a couple years ago. So I will also link to that in our show notes, as well as to your to the retreat in Costa Rica for anybody interested in that. But yeah, if you're coming from the About Abroad audience, I hope you'll jump over and listen to Badass Digital Nomads. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you so much, Chase, and bye, everybody.
Ciao. Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.